My name is Alan Jay. I'm the National Executive Director of Zionist Organization of America. Welcome. If you're a veteran of our webinars, welcome back. If this is your first Zoom with ZOA webinar, I expect you'll find the next hour to be quite informative. Today's program is entitled Emergency Briefing Iran Update and features panelists Ali Meli, an amazing friend and partner of ZOA, and ZOA strategist Akiba Covitz, who is in Israel as we speak. Due to the gravity of today's briefing, I will dispense with my usual recap of ZOA activities, save to remind you that our annual ZOA Florida Superstar Gala will take place 2 weeks from tonight on Sunday evening, March 15th in West Palm Beach, Florida. We will be honoring Congressman Randy Fine from Florida, Pastor John Hagee, founder and CEO of QFI, Leo Terrell, Congressman Brian Mast, and others. Registration is still open. Go to ZOA.org, where you'll find a prominent registration link. And on Monday, March 16th, the day after, we'll be hosting our first ZOA Women's Luncheon in Boca Raton. You can call the ZOA office if you'd like to join us. The midterm primaries are fast approaching, so do not miss our webinar tomorrow, Monday, March 2nd at 1 p.m. Eastern, entitled More Jew Hatred in Congress, Primary Elections to Watch, featuring ZOA's Director and Deputy Director of Government Relations, Dan Pollock and Adam Turner, moderated by ZOA Greater Philadelphia Regional Director, Steve Feldman. I want to jump right to the webinar, during which you will hear from 3 extremely qualified panelists, each coming from a slightly different perspective. You will hear from Ali Meli, an Iranian-American businessman, analyst, and philanthropist. You'll hear from our very own ZOA strategist, Akiba Covitz, who is coming to us from a bomb shelter in Jerusalem. And you'll hear from ZOA National President Morton Klein, under whose guidance ZOA has long called for the displacement of the evil and murderous Khomeini regime. If time permits, we'll take questions from the audience. In the Q&A feature only, mics will remain closed during the duration of the webinar. So if you have a question for any of our panelists, it must be put in the Q&A. We will try to get some of the questions. Please do not be offended if you do not get to your question. Mort Klein has been the national president and leader of ZOA for more than 30 years. Mort has testified before Congress, gives talks across the country, and appears frequently in all major media. Mort appears regularly on Newsmax, is frequently published in the Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel, JNS, and has been quoted in the New York Times, the New York Post, and others. Mort regularly speaks with senators, representatives, and other policymakers and world leaders. Mort has been traveling across the United States, meeting with influential community leaders and giving important talks and speeches about Zionism, Israel, Iran, and combating anti-Semitism. Mort is recognized the world over as one of the most influential Zionists of our time, and here to share remarks and to introduce our panelists, ZOA National President.
Well, thank you so much, Alan. And I welcome everyone for being here. We're all deeply concerned about what's going on, and we're all cautiously optimistic about what's going on. I'm honored to be with 2 outstanding panelists to discuss the Iran situation. First, we're going to hear from Ali Meli, who's a major Iranian-American financier, founder of Monarch Capital Partners. He was formerly a partner in Goldman Sachs for many, many years. He studied at Arya Meir University in Tehran, Iran, before going to MIT. He's been on Bloomberg, CNBC, Schwab, and other major TV outlets, media outlets. He's lectured and written about the Middle East, and especially about Iran, his own home country. He's really one of the smartest geopolitical analysts on these issues that I know. And after Ali Meli, we're going to hear from Dr. Akiba Covitz, who's actually one of our own people at ZOA. He's a senior strategist at ZOA. He's held top jobs at Harvard Law and Yeshiva University. He holds a PhD in political science from University of Pennsylvania and a law degree from Yale. For the last week or so, he's been in Israel. He's been in the bomb shelters and safe rooms. So he's going to give us an on-the-spot report from Tel Aviv, from Jerusalem, as to really what's going on there, how the Israeli people are responding and feeling about what's going on. First, it's my honor to call on Ali Meli.
Thank you very much, Mort. To the leadership and members of Zionist Organization of America, thank you for the platform, and thank you for your decades of moral clarity when others chose comfortable silence. As an Iranian, I want to say directly and without hesitation, thank you. What Israel and United States are doing right now in this moment is an act of liberation. Brave men and women of Israeli Defense Forces and Americans are putting their lives at risk. We heard about 3 American service members who have lost their lives in Kuwait, and their sacrifice means so much to us. What you are doing for people of Iran is an act of liberation. And I know this is not how it's being reported, but many Iranians, every Iranian that I've spoken to, unless they are regime thugs, they are incredibly grateful for what Israeli and Americans are doing right now. And you have seen from Los Angeles to the street of Shiraz, there are a lot of Iranians that are happy and dancing when they heard that Ayatollah Khamenei was killed. For many people, it was a very emotional moment. It's something that we have hoped all of our lives, all of our adult lives. It was known as the only supreme leader that we knew. And, just less than 40 or 50 days ago, on January 8th and January 9th, he murdered 70 to 80,000 Iranian people on the streets of Tehran. And all we can say is thank you for standing by us, and thank you for really creating a deterrence against the Islamic thugs. It's not random that in city of Karaj, people poured into streets. You actually can see in one video, an Iranian man shouts, "I love Trump." Another Iranian person shouts, "I love Bibi Netanyahu." In a southern city in Iran, crowd toppled a monument of Ayatollah Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic Revolution. And toppling the monument is a declaration. Those brave people that are celebrating in the streets of Tehran and streets of Iran all over the country, those brave people are declaring the end of the Islamic Revolution. I hope their optimism ends up being matched with realities on the ground. And even we are seeing the similar scenes in the United States. I saw a scene in Oklahoma where a reporter was trying to report, it was a CBS reporter trying to report of Iranians that are happy. We are seeing the same thing in London, in LA, where Iranians are holding Iranian flags, Israeli flags, American flags, pictures of Bibi, pictures of Trump, and picture of Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. So it is, while obviously it's a critical moment, there is a lot of grateful Iranians for the sacrifice that Israelis, people of Israel even, and we know that many people inside Israel are making those sacrifices. We are very grateful to you. And I want to just take a moment to explain why this is liberation for us and not war. Because we do not believe Islamic Republic is part of Iran. Just in the first 24 hours, the parts of the Islamic Republic apparatus that have been hidden, it was the Ministry of Information, it was IRGC bases, and I'll go over a strategy, but just the symbolism is equally important. The IRGC bases in Tehran, there is a particular base is called Sar Allah, which is, its primary use is domestic repression in Tehran. Like whenever there is protest, they send thugs from Sar Allah, essentially headquarters, to suppress people. And there is Haydar Karar. So Ministry of Information is hit. The Basij militia is hit and is being destroyed. And I saw footage today that apparently US at this point has achieved such level of air superiority that they are sending low-flying drones as well as A-10 warthogs and using them to take troop concentrations on the ground. When IRGC members tried to gather, they were shot at, and that created deterrence. And if that campaign continues, it will not only dismantle the missile capabilities, but it will dismantle the law enforcement infrastructure inside Iran. And when they say law enforcement, it's not really about law enforcement. It's a matter of suppressing people. These were instruments that the government used to kill Iranian people, and we are very grateful to see them gone. And now I want to just talk for a moment why strategically this is important, because one of the talking points that I saw all over the news media today was There is no victory. There is no path to victory. It's ambiguous. Some members of Congress have talked about that. But to me, the victory, to a great extent, has already been achieved. For 47 years, the Islamic Republic decided to build an apparatus to terrorize its neighbors, and especially Israel, with impunity, without having to worry about any type of consequence. They tried to encircle Israel by creating Hezbollah in Lebanon, funding Hamas, and their thing was, you can never touch us. The fact that now the supreme leader has been killed changes that equation, not just for now, but for this foreseeable future. Even if a transition and a regime change does not happen, and I really hope that it happens and this results in transition, but even without a transition, if you have a negotiation, if you have to cut a deal with them, the fact that Israel and United States demonstrated that they can take the top echelon of leadership without really anything coming in their way is a major strategic victory. And I think there was a second strategic victory for Israel and United States, which is driven by the, honestly, like short-sightedness of Iranian leaders. I don't know what they were thinking or what they were smoking when they decided to send missiles to the Arab countries neighboring Iran, to Kuwait, to Qatar. Some of them are not necessarily innocent actors in the sense that they have been trying to cozy up to the Iranian government and Islamic Republic, but now they know that the Shiite clergy in Iran, the same way that they view Iranian people as their enemy, they view the Arab neighbor countries also as their enemy. They didn't hesitate to send drones to Dubai or UAE. And that might broaden the coalition against the Islamic Republic. These countries had invested years in diplomatic de-escalation. That is now gone due to, I really don't think, but I don't know what a strategic goal Iranian government was trying to achieve, but sending missiles to every Arab country was just a stupid act. And I want to show or say what victory looks like. The victory is the Islamic Republic government already acting from a place of fear, which has already been achieved. It is people dancing in the streets. It is having a broad coalition in Middle East that brings Israelis, Iranian people, and even something that I wasn't seeing possible was have a essentially tri-party coalition, Iranian and Israelis together, as well as the Arab countries. And now everyone knows why you cannot trust the Islamic Republic. The man who ordered killing tens of thousands of Iranians is not dead. And that establishes credibility for President Trump. That his words, Iranians are learning that President Trump keeps his promise. When he said, don't attack the protesters, the Iranian government decided to ignore him, and now they are paying the price. And again, we are very grateful. We have never had an American president that comes and looks in the camera and tells us that he has our back, and he's giving us the help that the Iranian people have been looking for. So again, incredibly grateful for everyone who is sacrificing their life to stay and fight the evil that is the Islamic Republic and be on the side of good. And if we look at the level of military might that has been shown by the Israelis and by the Americans, it is an unprecedented military attack by probably the largest in history. It has even exceeded the 1993 and 2003 Iraq wars. The level of sophistication, the use of F-18 Growlers to suppress the Iranian air defenses, that is honestly an engineering masterpiece on how all of these military assets were used that within the first 6 hours, the entire Iranian air defense system was gone. And kudos to the brave pilots of Israeli Defense Forces and naval aviators that risked their life. And a lot of it was achievement of US Navy, because unfortunately many countries denied access to United States for using of their bases, including United Kingdom, which I find very disappointing, including the Arab countries in the Gulf, of course. So it was U.S. had to rely a lot on Navy, but U.S. has shown that they have the strongest Navy in the world. They are second to none, and the naval assets combined with the Israeli know-how is what has made this moment possible, and it's a moment of optimism, while it is at the same time a critical moment.
Well, thank you so much, Ali, for your thoughts, especially as an Iranian-American. You know intimately well, more than the rest of us, how the Iranians are feeling, how they're responding. In fact, a recent poll that just came out shows 81% of the Iranians support what Trump and Israel are doing, 81%. So it's overwhelming support. Even in America, the polls that I saw show well over half the Americans support this. These efforts. Now I'd like to call on Dr. Akiba Covitz, who's speaking to us in the middle of the night from Eretz Yisrael, from Israel, where he's been in a bomb shelter and safe rooms. And Akiba, please tell us how the Israelis are feeling, what's going on there on the ground.
Thank you, Mort. I've been here for 5 days. Just so everyone knows, I was here for a funeral, and things were normal for Israel. Everyone was anticipating there being something over the next week or so. I think people were betting, were talking about the fact that United States, Israel would attack Iran sometime in the next week. We were sitting Shiva, and it started. And since it started, I've been called, and I sent Jackie, who's monitoring this call, a screenshot from my phone about how many times, just an example of what it looks like on your phone in Israel. I think I've been sent to the bomb shelter in various places here in Israel 45 times over the last couple of days. The way it works, just from the mechanics perspective, is you get an alert about 10 minutes before. It says there's likely going to be a missile strike or an attempted missile strike in your area, and you get yourself ready. You get near the mamad, the safe room, or the miklat, the bomb shelter, and then 6-7 minutes later, you get a siren. Yeah, Jackie, why don't you show one of the screenshots now, just so everyone can see what life is like here in your phone. And you go into the room, and these rooms have very heavy metal doors, and you lock them, in part because of what happened on October 7th. It's not just to protect you from the bombs, it's to protect you from potential attackers on the ground. And you sit. So Jackie, do you have the screenshot of my phone? If not, we can keep talking. And what and normally what happens, so here's the process. You get so there's an alert in your phone, a very loud burp, like a screaming noise, and then you actually hear the air raid sirens outside. And Jackie's going to show what my phone looks like. There's one of the things you get. Jackie, if you can show the second slide there, as well. This is what your phone looks like. And you can see these things were happening at a certain point every few minutes. So I got one that says now when I took the screenshot, and then 1 minute before that, you get the space, you get the notice, you get a notice that it's going to be 14 minutes. So these are happening sometimes every 20 minutes. Thank God it's been 2.5, 3 hours since we had one here in Jerusalem. As you can tell, when I got those alerts, I was in Kfar Sava, I was staying with family there, which is east of Tel Aviv. I then went into Tel Aviv proper for some of the attacks, and I came to Jerusalem shortly, about 5 or 6 hours ago. My son lives here, and we went into the larger. So Jackie, if you can show the last slide there, that's what a miklat, that's what a bomb shelter. Yeah, that one there, Jackie. Looks like you've got people looking at their phones. You've got toddlers. It's usually in a storage area in the basement of a building. It's not very glamorous. Jackie, if you could show the other slide of us sitting in the smaller So that's a mamad. That's a much smaller space. That's my in the green shirt. That's my first cousin. The guy who's leaning down on his knee. He's actually a paratrooper. He was called up soon after that. If you see just behind my cousin's shoulder, her right shoulder, there's a machine gun next to her. That's his gun as a member of the paratroopers. Um, and Jackie, if you just want to show that red screen one more time to show you how they want to really impress upon you that it's time to get into the protected space. Um, the most recent attack here in Jerusalem. So normally what happens is you get the sort of scream, you get the actual air raid siren that you hear in World War II movies in Britain, and then you start to hear the Iron Dome. So you start to hear rockets going up, our rockets going up to intercept the missiles, and then you hear the explosion in the air. What I started hearing after that were you would hear Israeli Air Force planes also flying over. So you would hear the whoosh of a jet fighter. Um, what yeah, Jack, you can stop sharing and we can go back to what looks to be a human face like mine. Uh, uh, um, And and I just want to say, by the way, I'm not currently in a bomb shelter. I'm in my son's apartment. I came up from the bomb shelter here. There's no Wi-Fi in the bomb shelter, unfortunately. Um, but the one in Jerusalem was different. We heard the screaming and then the air raid sirens, and then we heard a much lower whooshing noise, which sounded different than anything that I had heard. And it turns out that that was a missile going over, which hit not that far from here. If you're seeing your news feed, was the attack in Jerusalem, which is not far from where I am, blew up a road and cars that were on the road. I think, thank God, no one was killed in that attack. But that noise was different, and you saw the look in everyone's face in the bomb shelter here in this building, like something was different there. And then you heard a very, very loud boom. The booms from the missile exploding as they're being intercepted are loud, but they're a little distant. They're usually not right above ground. But this missile came in. I don't know if it was hit at all and then exploded in the road. Again, not far from here. And you could tell that there was a shift in the room. People were concerned. And there was in the past when these happened in Israel, you would then get an all clear, but you're not getting the all clears very often now because uh, the the missiles were coming at such a rapid pace that they just kept you in the room for periods of time. Uh, and as Jackie showed you on my screen, that happened over and over again all night last night. Every couple of hours during the day on I forget what day it is today. Today's Monday here, Tuesday morning. No, I don't know. It's Sunday there for you. All day Shabbos here was just missile after missile after missile after missile. You get 20 minutes above and then you go back in. So it's been I have not experienced this sort of attack before in my times here in Israel, and I come here relatively often. What I see, to answer Mort's question, so when we were coming from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, we took the train, and the trains are running. A lot of the local buses are not, but the trains are running. And mostly it was filled with Israeli soldiers who have been called back into reserves. My son has not been called back into reserves yet. Uh, um, uh, there was one scene I wanted to repeat, which was uh, those of you who have taken the train to Jerusalem and come up from the three extremely long escalators from Yitzhak Navon train station. Um, there were two soldiers, a male and a female soldier from the same unit. They had the same beret. And the woman was carrying a very large backpack because who knows how long you'd be in. She was probably 5'2", and the backpack was wider than her and about 3.5, 4 feet tall. And she was struggling, and as they were sitting next to each other on the escalator, he was like holding her backpack up, and she noticed it. She'd pat him on the shoulder. Uh, People are not scared here. There's resilience, there's humor. I don't think there's fear. It's mostly just exhaustion, as you can tell. Uh, um, and I want to also say, Ali, in 1979, after the revolution, two young Iranian Jewish guys came and lived with my family when I was a teenager. So I spent a lot of time around Iranians, got to know a lot of the customs, a lot of the different prayers that they had and traditions. Um, One went on, their parents came years later, couldn't bring anything with them, finally made it to the United States. One of the kids became a doctor, one became a lawyer because we're good Jews, and business people too, Ali, business people too, they can be. But and uh, so what I learned mostly about Iranian Jews is that they're much more attentive during prayers than Ashkenazi American Jews. Morton and I went to the same uh, yeshiva, the same Jewish day school, and a lot of the kids were not particularly attentive during prayers. These guys were focused, never spoke, never chatted. We're always focused. We're always intense. We're so thankful for the opportunity to be Jews here in the United States. So that's and as a political scientist, I studied the revolution. Uh, you, Ali, as an analyst, know a great deal more about this. As political scientists, it's very hard to analyze people who are fanatics, people who are willing to die for the cause, not because they're patriots, but because they're fanatics, because they can't imagine any other way of life, and they can't imagine anyone else living a different way of life. uh, we political scientists got a lot of things wrong when it comes to these sort of fanatics. We think about rational actors, and these folks are not. They're simply murderous. They don't want us to exist. And again, as someone deeply connected to Israel, my personal happiness around all this is we're finally getting to the root cause. I feel like after all these years, we've been fighting the proxies of Iran, and now we're actually fighting Iran itself. Instead of dealing with the symptoms, we're dealing with the disease. And I think everyone here in Israel knows that. And I have not seen protests. I have not seen people complaining. I have not seen people in the media complaining. So I think the country's united behind this action.
Well, thank you, Akiva, for that extraordinary insights that I think few of us knew precisely what the Israelis are going through, as you, as a temporary Israeli this week, is going through. It's extraordinary to hear the difficulties that Israelis have to go through because of this vile radical regime. I wanted to myself, before we get to questions, mention I found it extraordinary that this very week in the Torah, the Holy Jewish Torah, we're reading about remembering Amalek. The Torah this very week says, remember this evil people called Amalek, and you must destroy them. How extraordinary that we're reading it this week just when we're trying to destroy the evil Iranian Amaleks. And how extraordinary is it that tomorrow night is Purim, where many, many years ago, we were fighting the Persians as well, led by Haman. And today we're fighting the modern day Haman, Ayatollah Khamenei. I also personally found it extraordinary. If you look at the name Khamenei, the center of that name, Khamenei, is Haman. The middle of his last name is Haman. Does that have meaning? Is there a mystical meaning to that? Is there a spiritual meaning? Does this mean it's clear that God is involved with the world and especially involved with Israel and Jewish people? It's really quite extraordinary to see these issues this week. I might add that there's a tremendously good reason why America is attacking Iran. Iran attacked the U.S. Embassy and Marine barracks in Lebanon a number of years ago, killing almost 300 Marine soldiers. They killed almost 1,000 Americans during the Iraq War. Iran did. They killed large numbers of Americans in the Khobar Towers in the USS Cole. They were intimately involved in 9/11, training the people who did this terrible thing. They were involved in 10/7. Yes, Iran was, where 40 Americans were killed. And many of the suicide bombings in Israel over the years, which killed many Israeli Americans, were perpetrated by Iran and helped by Iran. So there's a major reason why we have to go over this vile and evil regime. As many of you know, Ayatollah Khomeini has been killed, along with the defense minister, along with the senior advisor to Khomeini, along with the head of the IRGC, and we destroyed many of the important facilities, the Ministry of the Intelligence Agencies, defense ministries, the Atomic Energy offices, and Israel understood we had to kill Khomeini first thing immediately. Why? If we didn't kill him immediately, he'd be moving around and we'd never find him. So Israel understood this, and that's why they went after him right away. And why now? Why did Israel and America attack now? First of all, they wanted the element of surprise. Because yesterday, Sabbath, there was supposed to be a meeting between Marco Rubio and Benjamin Netanyahu. The Iranians figured there can't be an attack. There's going to be a meeting. They also figured there can't be an attack during the day. The attack was during the day. In addition, intelligence that Israeli and Americans determined is that there was a gathering of the Iranian leaders in one place yesterday. This was an opportunity to wipe out, in a matter of minutes, the top leaders of Iran. And they did kill almost 50 top leaders of Iran. That was another factor why they had to do this now, because of this meeting. And it worked. America, by the way, has sent their massive B-2 bombers to Iran, dozens of them. They're dropping 2,000-pound bombs to destroy the underground ballistic missiles. Iran, 2 days ago, had 2,000 of these missiles available to them. These B-2 bombers have already destroyed 1,000 of them. They only have 1,000 left, and this is only after 2 days. And they're going to continue bombing these missile areas and the launchers until they get rid of virtually all of them. Another extraordinary thing is Iran thought he's going to have a ring of enemies of Israel, Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, and if there's any war, they'll join. Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis said, if you attack Iran, we will join this war. Don't you dare do it. There'll be a regional war. So, Mr. America, Mr. Israel, don't you attack. Well, Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah have done nothing. They're scared to death. They've done nothing. But this doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with them later. We have to. We have to further dismantle Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. So our work is not done, even though they have not joined the war. As Ali mentioned, Iran has launched missiles against many Arab countries: Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Emirates, Bahrain, Jordan, Syria, Cyprus, non-Arab. Why have they done this? 460 missiles, 350 drones. Why have they launched these missiles against almost entirely Arab countries? One, because U.S. bases are there. And maybe more importantly, Iran thought if they attack these countries will become so concerned and worried, they'll pressure America and Israel to stop the war. They thought attacking these Arab countries would pressure them to tell America and Israel, stop the war. We can't take the missiles that are being hit by Iran into our countries. But the opposite happened. Instead, the countries have become hostile to Iran, and now even want to potentially join the war, and is encouraging America behind the scenes and Israel to continue the war. So their belief of what would happen was entirely wrong. By the way, not only Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis didn't respond, Russia and China, the two major supporters and allies to Iran, have done nothing, no response. They don't want to get involved. And maybe most importantly, I want to point out, to attack Iran is a U.S. interest. It is a U.S. interest. If there was no Israel, if Israel didn't exist, America would have to attack Iran because they were threatening America. In rally after rally, almost on a weekly basis, they'd have rallies screaming death to America. They'd have rallies screaming, America is the big Satan. We must destroy America. They're developing intercontinental missiles. That's not meant for Israel. Intercontinental, another continent. Those missiles are meant for America and for Europe. So we were being threatened by Iran. If Israel didn't exist, America would have to go and do what they've done. So for people who say America is doing Israel's bidding, nonsense. You think President Trump would do what Israel is begging to do when it's not in our interest? Of course not. It's absolute nonsense. We have to understand this. And I hope, by the way, that this will make it clear, just like after World War II, America stopped giving visas to Germans, Italians, and Japanese because they were our enemies. We have to stop giving visas to people from Muslim countries that are our enemies to protect us. America wants regime change. That's clear. That's clear. To get regime change, you need a successful war and the support of the people. We now are seeing a successful war developing and happening, and you see the Iranian people overwhelmingly support this war. That's why there's a very good chance regime change will happen, and we cannot allow some of the living leaders to take over, or the son of Khomeini take over, because they have the exact same ideology, hatred, and bigotry as Ayatollah Khomeini had himself. So I want to say, as an American citizen, as the head of ZOA, we are proud of President Trump. We're proud of Prime Minister Netanyahu. I'm proud, by the way, we were the only Jewish organization, the only major Jewish group to honor President Trump several years ago at our gala, giving him our highest award, the Theodore Herzl Award. Because of President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, the world is a safer place already. The Middle East is becoming a safer place. And now we have some positive things may well happen in the future. The types of potential changes we've never seen any possibility for in the past. I think now we see that this is a real possibility. So I think overall, Americans are right to be supporting this. Iranians, of course, are right to be supporting this. And we at the ZOA, of course, fervently and unanimously, I believe, support what is going on. And this war isn't over. There's going to be many positive developments over the next few days as the war is continuing and won't continue, President Trump assures us, until all of the goals of America and Israel are met. With that, I would ask Alan to open it up to questions. We have some time, yes, we do, to answer them.
Right.
Alan, do you have any questions on board?
There are many more, and we'll get to a couple, I think. The first question is going to be for Ali, and Ali, if it's okay, I'm going to aggregate a few questions so you can address a few items. Somebody points out that Mayor Giuliani posted a quote saying that the former crown prince is a despot and should not be Iran's next leader. You're asked if he's involved with the MEK, and what is the attitude of people like yourselves to the crown prince? And if you were forced to make a bet on who will lead Iran going forward, who would you pick? Or who would you think is going to be that person?
Absolutely, yes. Mr. Giuliani, as much as I like his domestic policies, for over the past few years, he has been essentially supporter of MEK, but that's not unique. MEK and ICRI, which is a proxy for MEK, essentially they call it the Council of Resistance. They are descendants of MEK, and MEK itself stands for Mujahedin Khalq Organization. They were one of the first Marxist Islamic groups that existed before the revolution. Their history includes bombing of American factories, including General Electric in Iran. So MEK has at the very least, I would say it has a dark history. And I'm not surprised that American politicians, there are two politicians. One of them is Mike Pompeo, the other one is Rudy Giuliani, that are more, I call them former Trump camp members, though President Trump didn't want Pompeo anywhere near foreign policy in the second term, that they have become mouthpieces for MEK. And it's a free country. People can have lobbying activities, so it's good for them, but I wouldn't put that much credibility in them. Personally, I do believe that the Crown Prince offers the best path for the Iranian people because he has the backing of the Iran's constitution, Iran's original constitution. Iranian went through a period of constitutional revolution in 1905 until 1909. That constitutional system is what gave us a period of prosperity and peace. Under that constitution, Iran had a democratically elected parliament that lasted until 1979. And under that democratic parliament, Iran had prime ministers that became very close with Israel. There was a point in time where there was direct flights from Tehran to Jerusalem under the previous constitution because Iranian people voted for a parliament that said we want to friend with Israelis, and they respected the rights of Iranian Jews. So I do believe that constitutional system has a lot of credibility and offers Iran the best, most stable chance for transitioning from the current regime. And one last thing about that is that the way that constitution was dismantled, it was because this Islamist and Marxist group that were getting funding from the Soviets back in the day, they could not win in the parliamentary election, so they tried to topple the system. And for 2 years, essentially, they did not even have a parliament running in Iran after the revolution. And then they changed the constitution and then made it impossible for anyone who was opposed to the Islamic regime to run in the parliament. So that's a little bit of brief history. I think a transition to back or a restoration of Iran's original constitution, the constitution that gave us a period of like 10% per year GDP growth, that is the key for us to achieve a successful transition. And that's my hope, that we can go back to that constitutional system of parliament and monarchy.
Thank you, Akiba. Ali. Akiba, one for you for Israel. Are there concerns in Israel from reliable sources that Arab sector in Israel or Arab factions in Judea and Samaria will actively get involved in the battle from inside of Israel?
I've seen nothing in the press about that. I'm a talker, and I've been taking some taxis, and most of the taxi drivers in Israel are Muslim. Lots of Jews are taxi drivers too, but and I've engaged the drivers as sort of man on the street as a stand-in. I know it's anecdotal, but and the two things that were to me is in both situations they got calls from Arab friends during the rides. And what I noticed, I only speak a tiny bit of Arabic. A lot of the conversation was in Arabic, but when they finished sentences, they used Hebrew. So, like when they said, like, listen, they used Hebrew. When they said, do you understand? They used Hebrew. Even though they were speaking to someone who I could see on the phone was Muslim, they sprinkled in the Hebrew. It's to me what's most ironic about the criticisms of Israel as entirely false, of course, as an apartheid or anything like that, is it seems to me Israel is the greatest example in the world of how Arabs and Jews can live together in some form of peace. I've never felt uncomfortable around Arabs here in Jerusalem. I think Israeli Arabs, in fact, are deeply connected to the state of Israel. And my cousin, as I saw the picture from the bomb shelter, lives in Kfar Sava, which is right next to Kalkalia, which is an Arab city. And there's lots of overlap in that area. I've never seen any form of tension there, again, amongst Palestinian Arabs here in Israel, so Arab citizens of the state of Israel. I think I have seen absolutely no evidence of there being what we used to call a fifth column here in Israel amongst Palestinian Arabs who are citizens of the state of Israel. I've seen no violence. I've seen no protests. Again, I sit in the backseat of their cars. I don't feel any of that. I have not seen anything in the press about fears around that or violence. There was one, the municipality of Lod, which is near Ben Gurion. Someone painted a Palestinian flag on the newly built city hall there, which caused quite a stir, was immediately removed, of course. So I wouldn't say that there's entire sense that everyone's part of Israel. There are going to be some people who feel otherwise, but no, I personally and none of the folks I know, including soldiers, including relatives who work for the government and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who have any concern around that.
Thank you. Ali, a two-part question, and Mort, you might want to weigh in on the second half. For Ali first, how do Iranian resistance people feel about comments from the Pope and Secretary General of the UN that the war should end with diplomacy? Second part of that question, which is similar, and what do you make of members of U.S. Congress who are against the war, especially considering the number of Americans who have been killed and injured by Iran and its proxies?
Sure, the wars always end with diplomacy, but it's a question of how. We had Japan unconditional surrender in World War II. We have Germans unconditional surrender in World War II. And those wars ended with diplomacy. But a lot of sacrifice were necessary. Our honored dead gave their lives to defend the advance of the Nazis in Europe. And they were not fools. They were not people who just gave up their life unnecessarily because there was a diplomatic ramp available. Diplomacy with the Islamic Republic does not work. They just lie. I mean, even their strategy was to try to lie to Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner and buy time and hope that, well, maybe if Trump loses in midterm elections, we'll buy time. That was their entire strategy of delaying. And thank God for Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner's involvement and President Trump's decisive decision-making. Their plan, the Islamic Republic's plan, failed. Mr. Witkoff is extremely shrewd. They tried to really run a circle around him, and they thought they were dealing with these career diplomats that have been, like Mr. Meli, Robert Meli, for example, he was a disaster. Thank God for Witkoff. His presence is a gift to many people, to Americans first and foremost, to Israelis and to Iranians. He did not buy what the Iranian government was telling him. So going back to the question about what the Pope said, of course it should end with diplomacy. But maybe the evil side surrendering itself is the precondition for diplomacy being effective. American War of Independence ended with diplomacy, but it only happened after General Washington achieved a decisive battle in Yorktown. And to the question, and members of Congress, I just actually saw many claims, or just a recent tweet by Yasmin Ansari, who is actually an Iranian-American member of Congress on the Democratic side. And not surprisingly, she's also taking this partisan view that the war was unauthorized, etc. First of all, many times over the past 40 years, presidents of both parties, including Mr. Clinton, including Mr. Obama, and President Trump, have relied on their constitutional power to launch military attacks. Second, and that's more of what is in America's best interest. That's a question, that's a point that Mort made. Iranian government, Islamic Republic government has their hands in every anti-American incident across the world, including from the hostage-taking, Khobar bombings, the bombing of barracks in Lebanon, and now they are trying to, essentially their ballistic missiles, their entire declared mission of their ballistic missiles, and we are seeing that that's what they are using, this roughly less than 1,000 ballistic missiles that they have left. And I think they have used around 280 of them over the past 48 hours. So I'm hoping that soon they will run out of ballistic missiles. That's their really most important deterrent asset and a strategic asset. These ballistic missiles were not designed for peace. The 3 American service members who gave their life in Kuwait were targeted by these ballistic missiles, more likely. The DOD has not, Department of War have not given an official report, but more likely they were victims of attacks by ballistic missiles. These ballistic missiles were designed, the Iranian government was not hiding the fact that they are going to be using these missiles to attack US bases in the region, and hence it was in United States' absolute best interest to take out the leadership of Iran and ideally force a surrender of the Islamic Republic.
Thank you. Well,
oh, go ahead, Morton.
It'd be very nice if you could solve a situation with the most evil empire on earth by talking to them. Trump tried talking to them repeatedly. They had no interest in solving it. You could not end the Nazi war against the world, focusing on the Jews, but against the world and wanting to take over the world. You couldn't end the Nazis' situation with diplomacy. It wouldn't work. It didn't work. You had to destroy the Nazis. You had to end their ability to do anything militarily. And that's how you ended the Nazi war. the war against the Nazis is by destroying them. Uh, and with respect to Congress, it seems very clear. Whatever Donald Trump does, the Democrats in Congress will be against, no matter what. The proof is in his recent speech, where he would say publicly, don't you support the fact that our duty as the government of America is to protect Americans over protecting illegal immigrants? And they refuse to stand. They refuse to stand. Well, of course, that is the goal, is to protect Americans over illegal immigrants. When he introduced the mother of a girl murdered by an illegal immigrant, and all the Republicans stood up to give respect to her and sympathy to her, the Democrats refused. I mean, this is frightening, actually, where they're not thinking clearly as to what's best for America. They're thinking of how to hurt Donald Trump. So this is really, really devastating and very frightening. And when it comes to illegal war, you know, Obama was involved in many wars while he was in power. The Democrats never said one word when he was launching military attacks without Congress's approval. They said nothing to Obama. So this is all hatred of Trump and hatred of the Republican Party. It is not based on rational thinking. How on earth can any American be against getting rid of one of the most dangerous, vile criminals on earth, Ayatollah Khomeini? How on earth can anyone be against America getting rid of this vile, evil leader of Venezuela, Maduro, where now Venezuela is acting in a much more civil way. They're selling oil to us where they wouldn't before. And the people of Venezuela are thrilled about what happened. The people of Iran are thrilled about what happened. The people who are not thrilled about what's happening is the Democratic Party, because they hate Donald Trump. So I'm sorry that that's what's been happening in America.
All right. We're running close, and I want to give each of our panelists a chance to make a closing comment. I'd like to ask Ali one more question. And Ali, you astutely mentioned that Iran seems to have fallen into maybe a trap that was set by Israel and the United States by lobbing missiles into their fellow Arab Gulf state and neighbors. Can you project how you feel that plays out after the war vis-a-vis the evolution of what we now call the Abraham Accords? Do you see a good evolution in that or something different?
Absolutely. I actually, honestly, Alan, that's where I might have a slight phrase different, because I don't think it was a trap set by anyone. Like, I do worry that Iranian government might say, oh, we were entrapped. They were not trapped. They made a deliberate choice. The choice was there. No one forced them to launch missile to their neighbors. They showed their true colors by sending missiles to even Qatar. And Qatar was semi-lobbyist, in my mind, in some instances, for the Islamic government. They tried to be a go-between, and sometimes I felt that they were getting so close with the Islamic Republic. And even they got attacked by the Islamic Republic. And the people who are responsible for that are the people who are sitting in Iran. It's not Israel's responsibility or America's responsibility or trap that caused them. They are responsible. They should be held responsible for their actions. And I agree. To your point, I think it will make it critical and crucial for, I mean, everyone realizes how critical it is for the Abraham Accords to become a reality and for all Arab countries to join forces, because the evil that we are seeing is not even about one religion. It is about evil of fundamentalism. The Shiites in Iran, the Shiite clergy in Iran have built their identity about attacking anyone who is not a Shiite. It could be one day Sunnis, it could be one day Israelis, and it could be one day even the people of Iran. When people of Iran said we don't want Shiite clergy, they killed 70,000 Iranians. For them, it's a pure ideology. And knowing that we have a common enemy, hopefully it will bring people closer together to cooperate. And I think for Abraham Accords, the potential is not just we have a common enemy, let's get together. There is true economic potential for everyone in the Middle East that comes from Abraham Accord. I mean, if you look at, I happen to work with a few Israeli companies in my day job, and the level of genius that they have around analytics, statistics, artificial intelligence, how to improve business processes. If you couple that with the financial resources that are in the Middle East can take over Europe in terms of GDP per capita. Maybe it cannot take America, because I always believe America is the level of genius in this country and entrepreneurship in this country is amazing. But I do believe that Middle East, that combination of intelligence, talent, hard work that you can see in Israel, combine that with financial resources that exist in Middle East. I think the sky is the limit if that becomes a reality.
That's great. I'd like each of our panelists to take a moment to just give a closing thought. Akiba, if you go first, Ali, follow Akiba, and then Mort, if you would close the program.
Thanks, Alan. My day job, as Ali called his, in the past was as a professor of constitutional law. And I want to support what Mort said, which is the actions that President Trump took are well within his constitutional authority. As Mort raised, Democratic presidents in the past have done the same thing. The leading mind on this, if people are looking for additional reading, in my view, is one of my former colleagues at Harvard Law School, Jack Goldsmith. He has a Substack account called Executive Functions, and he published a column today, and he's written about this many times before, that the only constraints on a president in protecting America's national interests, domestically and abroad, are political constraints. If he doesn't have the support in Congress, he can't do it. That he has the constitutional power to do this because it is clearly and arguably, but also clearly in America's national interest to do this. So just to be clear, there's no question that over the next few days, there'll probably be motions in Congress, and my colleague Dan Pollack is probably watching this and can say much more about this, that will try to make it the case that this was unconstitutional. It is certainly not unconstitutional. It is well within the president's authority. Speaking just in the last second, America here, again, I'll repeat, what Israelis are saying is that it's just about time that both Israel and the United States dealt with the root cause. So long we've been dealing with the epiphenomenal elements, their supports of proxies. It's time to be done with that. We're tired of sending our children to fight their proxies. It's time to destroy the root cause of this evil, and that's Iran.
Thank you, Akiba. Ali, closing thoughts?
My closing thought is message of gratitude for Israeli Defense Forces, for American Defense Forces, American Department of War. We know that you have suffered at the hands of Iranian government. We Iranians have also suffered at the hand of Islamic Republic. So thank you for your sacrifice, and thank you to people of Israel, because they are also sacrificing when they have to go to shelters. They are sacrificing. We appreciate your sacrifice. And also, I want to reiterate Akiba's point that was correctly made, that the president has authority under Article 2 of the Constitution. It was used in Korea, it was used in Vietnam, it was used in Kosovo, it was used in Libya by Obama, it was used in Syria. That authority exists. And also there was a division of labor between and level of coordination between Israeli forces and American forces, which is much of the taking out of the Iranian leadership was carried out by the Israelis. So if you want to be very technical about it, what American forces have done was mainly in essentially suppression of early air defense systems, enemy air defense systems, and attacking their strategic targets. What could be viewed as an act of war was carried out by Israel in a justifiable self-defense. When someone says they want to wipe Israel out of the face of the map, of course, it gives Israel the right to self-defense.
Thank you, Ali. Mort, would you like to make closing comments and close the webinar?
Yeah, in respect to the constitutional issue that was discussed, I believe I'm correct to say that the last time Congress gave an allowance for going to war was World War II. All the wars since then, I don't believe there's been any action by Congress to go to war. But as my colleagues have just said, the president has the right to do what they've done since World War II to this day. I also want to say it's a remarkable thing that we should be aware of, that the Israeli economy, despite 2 years of war, despite what's going on now, has remained resilient, is in decent shape. The Standard & Poor's maintains an A rating for creditworthiness of Israel, has not gone down. That's a remarkable thing we should all be grateful for, all of us supporters of Israel. And I want to end by saying it's important to understand that, again, I'll repeat, America is attacking Iran for our interests as American citizens, even if there is no Israel. I'll say, if you think about the Nazis in World War II, if there were no Jews, America would have to attack the Nazis. If there were no Jews, they'd have to attack the Nazis, because their goal was to destroy the world, control the world, destroy America. It was our need as Americans to go after the Nazis, even if there were no Jews, just like today. Even if there was no Israel, we have to go after Iran, because Iran's goal is death to America. We're the big Satan. They want to dominate the world, take over the world, and create a caliphate where the radical Muslims control. So even if there was no Israel, America would have to go after Iran, as they correctly did. But I am confident now to see the success so far of this war against the Islamic Republic of Iran, that the world is already a safer place. The Middle East is becoming a safer place. And I think, unlike before this war, there are real possibilities for possible positive developments in the Middle East, which we have never really seen the likes of which before. There's real chance for positive developments. I am optimistic and hopeful for the future due to the actions of President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you so very much to everyone here for being with us.